stop being a bitch and become the bitch. And guys are like, that makes no sense. A bitch is exactly what you think. Weak, making excuses, blah, 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 could go on. Become the bitch. Become intellectually sound, trainable, a communicator, and hard as fuck. And then they go, or if I have a group of men, I say, hey, listen, stop being a bitch and start being the bitches. And they're like, well, what's that mean? Become intellectually sound, trainable, a communicator, hard as fuck. And what did I do? Especially in a short amount of time. And they're like, wow.
All right, this episode, we have the pleasure of having Ray Cash Karen.
Thank you, sir.
Ray is a former Navy SEAL, lead instructor of the Modern Day Night Project, and also co-founder of the Squire Project. Am I missing anything?
And then I'm also the co-founder of our corporate training events we do with Bedros, of course, the LTD Leadership Team Development, which is kind of if we had to dial it down, it's a rated PG version of the project,
right.
Having companies and teams work, shoot, move, and communicate, right? Be a tier one, run their businesses more effective and efficiently.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here, brother.
My pleasure, man.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome to have you. So, why Cash? Why the nickname Cash? Is there a funny story behind it?
Well, it's not as cool as you think. So all through my years of the SEAL teams, I was Care Bear because my last name's Care. And when I showed up to the Charlie India Alpha, right, CIA, I'm not going back so I can say it. They asked what your call sign was, and I said, I'm Care Bear. And the lady that was actually taking it, she goes, nope, that's not going to happen because that's my call sign.
Oh, really?
So truth be told, I had an old-fashioned pre-Joaquin Phoenix Cash shirt on, and there were two gentlemen there named Jeff Fink and Tom Rochoff, one was a legend over at SEAL Team 6, and the other one did platoons with me. So we'll call you Cash. And during the time, the transition, was getting out of the military and providing for your family and doing something new. It's scary as shit. So I hadn't slept a lot. So I was like, why Cash? Why Cash? And it was like the running joke. And I was like, yeah, I love Johnny Cash. Let's do it. Well, like an hour later, I'm like, we're at the chow hall eating, and I look down, and I'm like, oh, and that's how it came to full circle. I wish it was sexier, but it's not. I need to come up.
Cash is sexy, man.
Well, I know, but it needs to be something like, I've got a lot of money, I've got a big
yeah,
billfold.
Right.
It's not that at all.
Yeah. Hey, well, I was honestly, it's one of those nicknames where it's just like, I just have it. So at least there's a story behind it. And,
yeah.
Dude, and I like Cash more than Care Bear, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, pleasure to have you. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So a good mutual friend of ours, Jason Redman, we had him on, and I saw that. I saw you're going to be in Austin. I reached out to Jay, and I said, dude, I want to get this guy on. I love everything he stands for. I love everything he's doing. He said, make a call, and then here we are, man. So
the LT gave me my marching orders. I was like, he told me the backstory, right? I have to apologize. I didn't know what the backstory was, and it was a real quick conversation. And I called you and said, let's do it. And you adjusted to my schedule. I mean, I got my ass kicked by Tim Kennedy and a few other people this morning, and you've adjusted, and I think it's for a great cause. So yeah, let's do it. Let's dive in.
100%, man. Yeah. So Ray was like, we're going to do the 38 challenge this morning, and then obviously you got to follow through with your word with Tim. But you were like, I'll do a 38 challenge too. And I was like, dude, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah, I would have died because I just posted a video of me on Instagram, and that's I don't want people seeing the smoke, the mirrors with everything, right? Like smoke, mirrors, and filters. I want people to see the rawness, and that's kind of why I like this, because obviously this is something that is near and dear to me. And life is raw, and I don't like to use filters and take still pictures. So I actually am one of the few people that will get on Instagram and just like belittle myself.
Right.
And because that's how you create growth. So addressing these hard issues is the same way. We're trying to create awareness and growth. So when you said, let's do it, man, it's like, like Jason was like, he sent up the bat signal, and I'm like, let's go. So Jason was my LT too. So when he gives me marching orders, I pretty much do it. So
hell yeah, man. So for listeners that don't know, because I think we can draw a lot of connection between what we're centered around and vulnerability and what y'all do at the project and all your endeavors.
Yes.
So can you explain what the Modern Day Night Project is and your other projects as well, so that we can make that connection?
Yeah, so let's start with the project first, right? I call that the Mecca. That's a 75-hour, fully immersive physical, mental, and emotional course where You're going to have Bedros Keuilian, the entrepreneur, Ray Kashkar, the SEAL, the MMA fighter Aaron Alejandrino. We have a maniac Marine named Steve Eckert, and then we have SWAT operator, hostage negotiator Matt Schneider. We are going to physically, mentally, emotionally break you down, emotionally redline you, right? Because we run in 3 colors, red, green, and blue. We are going to control everything in your life, kind of like SEAL training and other spec ops groups, making men better. How do we do that? We create growth, physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, and financial growth. Spiritual, I want to make very clear, has nothing to do with religion unless you as a human being, a vessel, want that. Spiritual to me is believing in myself as a man, right? I tell these men that, and I just got off a call with a gentleman by the name of Robert, and I asked him, what's his why? And he's married with 2 kids, and he's like, it is my wife and my kids. And I said, you couldn't be farther from the truth. If you want to be a better father, husband, lover, listener, provider, protector, you have to be a better you. So what we are embedding in their DNA is your why must be you, if you, whatever it is you want to do. So my job and Steve's job is to break individuals down, right? So, and it's funny, and I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on here, but I hear these motivators, you know, the Andy Frisillas and all these guys, they're like, I'm in the business of building up motherfuckers. We're in the business of breaking them down. Bedros Keuilian needs people like me, and I'll make that very clear. He could, people like me, not me,
Right.
to break individuals down so then he can teach and go in. He's a master of what he does. And being an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, it just means, and this is what infuriates me, I love it, and Bedros told me this, he's like, have you ever looked up the definition of an entrepreneur? And I'm like, no, it has to do with business. He goes, no. And when I looked it up, it's a person that gets up every day and takes risk. We're all entrepreneurs, right? Since the day we've been born. And what we're doing is we are creating growth by dealing with past and current pain. So I talked about the 6 forms of growth. The 7 forms of pain are physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, and financial. Well, that sounds just like the growth, but there could also be sexual pain. And 1 out of every 4 men in America, and Bedros showed me these stats, have been inappropriately touched or molested, and it's a serious issue, and it's something we don't address enough because men, they build up these physical, mental, and emotional walls, and they allow anybody in. We are a networking group who is there for individuals to create growth by dealing with past and current pain. Imagine if you had a support life system that no matter what your issue was, you could call someone. I could call Bedros. I mean, the guy runs like, gazillion-dollar companies. I can call him with an emergency and he will stop every fucking thing he's doing. And he's big pimp. Like, he'll have a boardroom of like 50 people. He tells everybody to get out. Like, he could just get up and walk out. This is board. Get out. And he will help me through that physical, mental, and emotional, pain that I'm going through. And it's nice to have that support system. You're not paying, this is what people don't understand. We're not paying for the 75 hours. You're paying for the networking, the lifelong brotherhood, the connections that you have for the rest of your life. And you will be held, young man, because you're younger than my son, you will be held to a higher standard for the rest of your life. And what I love about it is you're also called out on your bullshit. I am the king. I am the king of self-sabotage. Bedros will tell you this, the king of not knowing my self-worth. And I'm the king of fucking bullshit. Pardon my language. I get called out all the time. He's like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. And it's amazing when a human being accepts, and I want it. I crave it. Tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can learn how to do it right. And that's what we do there. Now, that's the project. My passion project is the Squire. So my father was murdered when I was 11, broken home, didn't have a great childhood growing up. That's okay, right? That's okay. And so what we do is, all of us were sitting around and, Bedros, the brainchild, was like, we need to do something for the next generation, because I'm not going to lie to you, I don't like where this country's going. I don't like the lack of support for LEOs. I don't like the lack of support for teachers and first responders. I don't like it, and I don't have to like it, and that's my choice. But what I can do is try to create a group of men, young men and fathers, and build these relationships. And the problem with a lot of fathers and sons right now is there's a lack of communication, right? Line of sight, you to me, transmit, receive, because dads are too busy or sons are too busy playing video games. excuse me, what we do is we get them to our facility. We have an amazing facility, and for 15 hours, we teach the dads to dad up. We give them extra tools to go in a tool bag because we're all fathers. And then I train the young men, and I teach them like the importance of a handshake, how to give a handshake, right? Like, you don't sit down when a man gives you a handshake. I don't care if you're 22 and I'm 50. You stand up if you can stand up. You look a man in the eyes, you give him a firm handshake, and he needs to know that there is no other place on planet Earth that you would rather be than meeting him, right? I came in here today, this amazing facility. I look like shit. I said, hey, I need to change, right? Don't disrespect another man in any fashion, right? I also teach young men that it's okay to give your father a hug. Now, what's so amazing about our group is we have some uncles that come in. We even have some single moms that are like, I don't have a male role model. Hey, I get it, Mom. We will provide a male role model for you. And, we'll help get him on the right course. We've had some amazing people here, right? Tim Kennedy hosted one. Ryan Mickler, who's one of my very good friends. I have a great relationship with his son, Brecken, who's 14 years old. And what we've noticed is these men, like, they're great dads, they're great fathers. They are doing the right thing. But sometimes a young man just needs an outside perspective on things. Like, I love Ryan, but Ryan was telling Brecken something. He's a great kid. I love the kid. And I came in and said the same damn thing. And he's like, Mr. Ray, that's amazing. And Ryan looked at me like, are you kidding me? Right. And I'm like, I know. My son was interested in being a Navy SEAL. He's talking to a guy who wasn't even a Navy and wasn't even a SEAL. So what we do is we come in and we just focus on that communication. We focus on the 4 F-bombs, which I call my non-negotiables of being a man. Family. He needs to know his role, mom's role, dad's role, siblings' roles, right? So, and what I explain is, in the perfect world, right? If you have a father and a mother in your ecosystem and you have children, if someone breaks into my home, my job, right? I'm the protector, is my wife and my daughter know exactly what to do. My wife gets my daughter, she's calling 911. I'm either standing at the top of the steps or I'm going down to go to work. And I'm going to go down and go to work because that's my house and I work hard for it. My son's there. When he's little, he would be with mom. As he gets older, he's 28 years old right now. His role changes. I will have him at the top of the stairs, right, at that choke point with a gun, holding that line so no one comes up if something were to happen to me as I go down and clear that house. As he progresses and gets older and I grow older, right, I become the old warrior, 70 or 80 years old, then it's his job, his responsibility to step up and take my place. And these young men need to understand that. So that's what we focus on. So that's the family. The fitness, it's 3-dimensional. Physical, mental, and emotional. Being physically fit is not enough. Finance is as simple as this. I tell these young men between ages 11 and 16, mom and dad are not an ATM machine. Understand the importance of a dollar. And if you want to get a job, and this is what I'm going to tell dads, I don't know where these cameras are, listen to me, moms, do not pay your children to clean their rooms. You pay your children to go above and beyond. My daughter once was like, Daddy, if I keep my room clean, can I get an allowance? I said, no, ma'am. I can take everything out of your room and you won't have that. Now, some people think that's harsh. No, it's not. My daughter babysits. She gets $10 an hour. I take $4 out of it. Sounds like the government. She saved up to buy a pair of Golden Goose shoes. I told her, sweetheart, I want you parents to listen to this. You save up half the money, Daddy will pay the other half. They're $600 pair of shoes. She's 14. Those shoes are a year old. You know what kind of shape they're in? Pristine, because she worked for it. Yeah. And last is faith. Faith, again, has nothing to do with religion unless you want it to. Faith is about believing in that ecosystem. And my last name is Care. Team Care. Trust, effort, attitude, mission. Trust yourself. Trust the process. Trust in what's happening with your father and mother because they are guiding you hopefully in the right direction. Effort, I don't believe in 100%. I believe in everything you have and then some. Attitude, again, I focus on young men because that's what I know. Nothing will open or close a door faster in any form of your life than a good or bad attitude. And M is the mission, which is the growth, which we talked about. Physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, and financial. My job is to make sure that the fathers are on the same sheet of music with that. I make sure the sons hear that, but it's not my job to prioritize that. It's not Bedros's. I cannot come into your home if you have a family and parent your children. What I can do is make sure that I'm instilling the same message that you want so that we can get them calibrated or on the right track. And that's what we do. And it's an amazing group because we've had a couple dads that have come through 3 or 4 times and they're like, I love it. And we do some crazy shit. We put them in ice baths.
Right.
We blindfold them and walk them through hell. And I love that. That was actually Bedros' idea. And I love that because all we're doing, if I blindfold you and I'm your father and I'm old enough to be your father, and I walk you through this amazing course of fire, glass, whatever, all I'm doing is amplifying what I've been doing since the day you were born. And that's providing, protecting, and hunting. So there's that. And then the last thing we do, and I'm going to keep this quick, is we do the leadership team development training. And that is where we go into companies and corporations, big, small, and we teach companies how to be more effective, more dominant, and build morale from within, right? So if you have a company that has 20,000 employees, you have 20,000 CEOs. Every single person needs to believe that they are there for a reason. That is their company. We teach companies how to shoot, move, and communicate like tier 1 operators, right? Hey, listen, I know I get a lot of grief. Hey, be the Navy SEAL, whatever it is you want to do, the tier 1 operator, the recon, whatever it is. And then what we do that no one else does is we infuse the 3 battlefields of life. The internal battlefield, which is the internal struggle, the business field, which is the bullshit you deal with at work, and the home field. And what we have learned is some of the most successful people in one of those fields really are lagging in the other 2. So what we do is we give them drills and a lot of life lessons so that we can do that. If you work for me and we have a great relationship and I see that you're not running on all cylinders, I could ask you a couple questions. Hey, is it with your family, your fitness, your finances, faith? Is it with the trust, effort, attitude, mission? Or is it the internal? Is it the internal struggle, the work struggle, or at home? And I can figure that out. And then hopefully I will be able to give you advice, not in my opinion, advice on how you can dial that in. And we are making a difference. We've done some huge companies, and that's myself and Steve Eckert run that 90% times, but every now and then they'll want Big Daddy to come in, and Bedros teaches, a lot of entrepreneurship. So it is an amazing thing. I'm very blessed to have this position, and I'm blessed to be here.
Yeah, man. And
that's a mouthful, huh?
Mouthful for sure, but so many interesting ways that we can go in this conversation, because just about everything you've said, I think, ties back to, or we can find out where vulnerability plays a piece into all those different things. You mentioned mental fitness. You mentioned the internal struggle, right? And anything with faith is vulnerability. Anytime you trust someone is vulnerability. So I guess before we go that route, what is your definition of vulnerability?
Someone who is willing. Oh man, I have so many different definitions. I'm trying to make sure I use the right one here. Vulnerability is when someone accepts the flaws, the screw ups, and all the what I call miscalculations of life, things that they do wrong with their family, their fitness, finance, and life, and just realize that, number one, you are human, and number two, it's okay to ask for help. Because as a man, that's the problem with, I think, society today. Men are so scared to be vulnerable, and that's why we have a lot of the issues that are happening with suicide, right? Men don't want to be vulnerable and reach out, because I honestly think somewhere, somehow in the past, there was a cry for help, and the wrong person was there to receive it, right? Like case in point, the one things we talk about, and this is how I'll bring it to kind of full circle, is if my son comes to me and says, Dad, I really need to talk to you about something. As a father, as a human, as a man, I need to stop everything I'm doing, right? Because what you don't want to do is compartmentalize, break, and just shut him off, put him here and say, I can't talk right now, I'm too busy, or I can't talk about it now, because who knows what he's coming to you with. And you got to keep those lines of communication open. And I wish men would, I use this when I sell this, I say women are the C word, let me finish, and men are the V word. Women are creative, I would never use that other word. Right. And men need to be vulnerable, right? And the reason why we don't want to be vulnerable is because we don't want people to think we're weak, because there's this stereotype that men are supposed to be this, this, and this. In all actuality, we're human, like we fuck up, we make mistakes, we have regrets, we have doubts, we have remorse, we second guess ourselves, we self-sabotage. A lot of times we don't know our self-worth. We have that inner voice that becomes the inner bitch where we just, we're so hard on, I am so hard on myself. I did like I said, I did a workout today, and I was so ashamed that I didn't even want to get a picture with Tim Kennedy afterwards. And Tim's like, stop. Like, he literally said, stop. You did the best you could. You don't train like this. Just, stop being, you're not being vulnerable right now. You're being too hard on yourself.
Right.
Be vulnerable and realize that this is what you need to do to be better. And I think when more men accept the word vulnerable into their vocabulary, a lot of growth can happen. But I think a lot of that also kind of stems over to, are you surrounding yourself with the right people, right? Like if I need to talk to somebody, I can talk to any one of the other instructors. And if it's a legit serious thing, they will stop everything they're doing. And I think more men need to kind of analyze the people that they have in their life, right? I talk about it, trim the fat. And 99% of the time, the reason why they can't be vulnerable is because they have people in their life that are toxic. They are a cancer. And I don't like that word because I just lost my father-in-law to it. I hate that word. But the minute that you start cutting those negative people, places, things, and entities out of your life, you then can blossom and be vulnerable and surround yourself with better people who are going to listen. And I think we need to know, like, as a community, we don't look like veteran suicide, things that happen, right? And it's not just veterans. I mean, society, a lot of people are just taking their lives. And I think there's a lot of signs that could be recognized if they were with the right people and they had the right relationships. But what do these human beings do? They isolate themselves, ostracize themselves, and then nobody knows what the hell's going on. It's easy to get on the phone and you go, yeah, man, I'm doing great, while I'm sitting there thinking about taking my life. But if you have the right people in your life, like me, like, I'm going to go see you. I'm like, hey, man, where you been? What's going on? I'll go knock on the door. Hey, because all it takes is a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. And sometimes just that little bit of time and that little bit of effort can actually save someone. And that's what my journey is. Like, I don't know if you know this or not, but I do my 1,000 push-ups a day and I do my 1,320 on Saturdays. I haven't been doing them kind of on my Instagram, but I still do them. And it's just raising awareness, letting people know that, you're not alone. And I call it the power hour of positivity, where I don't want to hear bullshit. Like, I have over 50,000 people blocked on my Instagram. I'm 50 years old, man. I'm half a lifetime old. I ain't got time for it. I cut, and that's, advice that I've been getting from Bedros and some other, cut them out. I've had to cut my inner circle, family members out of my life because they're toxic. And I think once you do that, then you can begin to heal, mend, and grow. And it's because, but you do have to take the leap of faith, right? Like if I'm going through something, I'm a little older than you. I don't want to say I'm wiser, but I know who I can talk to about what, right? Like each one, like Aaron is very spiritual. I can talk to him. Steve isn't as much. I talk to him more about learning my business stuff. Bedros I can talk to pretty much about anything with, except on Mondays. He's very busy on Mondays, but if it was an emergency, he would take it. And then Matt kind of keeps me grounded. So between them and the relationship I have with my wife, it's definitely helped me out, because there's been times, I've come back from doing things, we'll leave it at that, where I've second guessed what I've done, why I've done it. And, I've had negative thoughts in my head before. I think any veteran that has dealt with any type of trauma, PTSD, explosions, gunfights, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just so many great gems in there and so many pieces of advice. I'm sitting here learning because I myself need to grow as a man, right? So
we all do.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah. And I think one of the great points you mentioned is that, vulnerability is a two-way street. And we need to change the narrative about what it means to be vulnerable, because like you said, a lot of men view it as weakness. But I think someone like yourself, who's in the business of making men, understands that vulnerability is one of the strongest things.
It's a strength
that you can do.
And it's an acquired strength. Like it takes a lot of internal fortitude to become vulnerable. And I love it when I see like strong, tough men Like, hey brother, give me a hug and I love you, man. Like, I never told men I loved them before. And it's okay to do that. And it got a lot of people are like, they use words that you can't even use. You're this or you're that. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm strong. And I love this man for what he represents and what he's doing. And I love this person. I love this person. It's okay to tell people you love them. It's also awesome. Like, two of the most powerful words in the dictionary are thank you and you're welcome. Like, if you use them, thank you. Thank you for letting me come on your podcast. You shouldn't be thanking me. I'm thanking you. You reached out. Thank you. Thank you for letting me spread my, I get up every day and I say thank you to my wife. Sometimes depending on her mood, and if she's had her coffee or not, it's you're welcome or it's, but I'm going to continue to thank people. I thank Bedros every time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity of a lifetime to come work for you and build generational wealth. Thank you, Aaron, for being able to talk to me when I'm second guessing myself or self-sabotaging myself. It's amazing the power of those words if they're used correctly. You can't abuse them, right? I don't say thanks, man. Thank you. Like, I look at man, thank you. You're welcome, right? It's so powerful. Or I love you. And people are like, Navy SEALs don't say that. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Another point I love that you make, and we actually had someone reach out to me saying, because we spread a message, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's so sad that words like thank you, words like you're welcome, right? A lot of times they've lost their meaning, and we have to put them back into that. And one of those same phrases that has lost its meaning is how are you? Like, I'll ask someone, how are you, right? But now it's just a greeting. How are you? I'm good. So what I like to do is say, how are you doing mentally? I like to add that word at the end, because what it does is it takes a person back, right? How are you doing mentally? They have to think like, shit, how am I doing mentally? And if they say good, dude, that's awesome. Why are you doing good mentally? Like, what are you doing in your life that has you in that same place? I'm trying to improve my mental. If they say, I'm not doing great, then you can get to the bottom and ask those type of questions. So it's intentionality with these phrases. So I like to say, how are you doing mentally? So I had a guy reach out to me and he said, hey, what if someone thinks that that's too personal? And I responded, I said, it might be too personal. If you are going up to random people saying, how are you doing mentally? Then you have to ask yourself, why am I asking this question? Who am I asking it to? Is it appropriate for me to be asking this question? And I love the point that you made of your group now, the group of people that you trust, because I think that when we describe vulnerability and strength, like, there's a time and there's a place, and you have to be comfortable with the men in your life to be able to do so. Yeah,
I mean, I don't go around just meeting someone off the street doing that, right? Situational awareness, know your audience.
Exactly,
yeah. You have to. It takes time. You're not going to acquire this becoming vulnerable overnight. Mm-hmm. You're not going to You're not going to have internal fortitude. It takes time. It's getting up, putting one foot in front of the other, creating movement, creating motion, and realizing that you have a purpose in life, and that is to make an impact. Now, people always like, well, what's my purpose? I have no clue. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's to make an impact. Like, I met Bedros. I honestly, I try not to get like superstitious or all this stuff, but something put us together. And I honestly think that we are going to change the world. I'm not going to work anywhere else unless, it's funny. It's like, I've never wanted to quit, and I hope I never get fired. And it's because, and I do make a lot of mistakes, right? I mean,
don't we all, man?
It's just, being an Irish kid from Baltimore who has no entrepreneur skills, jumping in that pond, I mean, it's vicious. But Bedros does take the time to teach me. But I mean, I have messed up. And what's so great about him is when I mess up, he doesn't yell, but he's like, okay, this is how you messed up. This is what needs to happen so it doesn't happen again. What are you going to do? And I'm just like, yes, sir, this is what I'm going to do. So he actually, in all terms, becomes vulnerable with me. And it'd be easy to just yell at me, like, you idiot. And I'm like, but then what does that do? That shuts me off, right? Instead, he takes the time to teach me. What I love about Bedros and what he's taught me is you've got to take responsibility for things in your life that aren't wrong. Like, is it his fault or my fault? Did he not teach me? Did someone forget? Did something just get passed on or passed off? I mean, and I can't make excuses. When I really fuck up, I'm like, sir, I'm completely wrong. And he's like, well, why did you mess up? Honestly, I didn't know. And he's like, well, shit. Let's make sure you know this right now, mm-hmm. right? So I think if people really just break it down to the simplicity of that. Like, know your dive your plan, plan your dive. Excuse me, plan your dive, dive your plan, and know what's going on and ask questions. Like if you're having thoughts of negative thoughts, you got to reach out to someone. You got to reach out to someone. You can't let that, because what happens is when someone does, God forbid, take their life, they're not exploding. They've actually imploded. It's come from the inside, the internal, and they're screaming. And on the external, you don't see that. But on the, it's like I need Superman X-ray power to get in there and see. But by that time, it's too late. So that's why, you've got to surround yourself with the right ecosystem, with people who care and love about you and love you. And we'll call you out on that stuff. Like, hey man, you seem off. Can we talk? What's wrong? Are you?
And that's a hard thing to get down to.
It is. It is very hard. But in all actuality, if you're with the right people, it's not as hard as you think. Especially if they take the time to receive the message that you're transmitting. So and I believe in line of sight. Like if I have a real problem, like I will try to can we get on the phone call? I can't text someone my issues. Can we FaceTime? Can I meet you? Can we have coffee? I need someone. Especially if I'm worried. I want to see the aura that they're putting off. Facial expressions, body language. Just so many little signs that are given to us that we just take for granted, and it pisses me off.
Yeah, man. What I love about having you talking about this issue is your love for doing hard shit. And we talk about how hard vulnerability is. So walk me through your mindset of hard shit, and then we'll attach that to our definition of vulnerability.
Hard shit is me doing things that just put me in the red zone. Like I love being uncomfortable. I love pushing myself physically, mentally, emotionally. There is no real definition. First thing I do, I get up, I do the same damn thing. I'm a creature of habit. I get up every day. I attack the hill. That's my mindset, right? Which I just reverse engineer everything. If people don't like doing burpees, there's a reason. People don't like doing pull-ups, there's a reason. So I'm like, well, I'm going to do them until I can figure out why they don't like doing them. And then all of a sudden, when I'm doing all this stuff, I'm like, they just don't want to do it because they want to break through that barrier. So, I just said this on an interview, and Badgers laughed at me, with Muscle and Fitness. I want to be the next Jack LaLanne. Minus being a chiropractor, I want to be in my 80s, pulling shit with my teeth, wearing a jumpsuit, just being a beacon of positivity. And the only way that I'm going to do that is if I go off and I train. I can't get complacent. I didn't in the teams, and I won't with my life. I won't with my life or my wife. I am constantly trying to better myself. And there's no end game. There's no end game. Like, when I first started working with Bedros financially, I'm like, when I make a certain amount of money, he's like, then what? It's like, well, I guess I'll have to figure out what's next. I've come there. He's like, what's next? Well, I want to double it. Well, then double it. But what I love about him is don't sacrifice the things that are important to double it. We figure out other ways. But I honestly think that one of the keys to success is doing hard shit every day that you get up. Like, people would have never thought that a guy can get up and do 1,000. They're like, there's no way I could do 1,000 push-ups. Yes, you can. Whenever you're having negative thoughts, doubts, frustrations, drop down and do 20 push-ups. You'd be amazed of how quick you get 1,000 push-ups. And you really would. And what's amazing with that evolution is that hard shit becomes kind of hard shit. That becomes easy shit. And then once you do that, it's like, check in the box. What's next? How can I become uncomfortable learning about business? How can I learn about being uncomfortable? Like, here you go right now. My daughter's 14. She's going to homecoming. She has this dress my wife got her. Oh my God. Like, she's built like my wife. I'm cursed. And instead of making negative comments, I'm just like, you're beautiful. But inside, I'm like, I want to kill any man. But I can't be that role model for her. She needs to understand that, yes, you're beautiful. Daddy's here for you. That's uncomfortable for me. It's so much easier for me to go, I'm going to call him out, Alex. Alex is going to, take my daughter out.
Good luck, Alex.
Yeah. And, it's easy for me to just go, you know what? If you do anything, I'm going to kill you. That's so easy. But I'm in my comfort zone there. It's so hard to shake his hand and say, listen, she needs to be home by this time. Obviously, parents are driving. And I told him, I want you she's my most prized possession. You need to treat her with respect, or then I told him, you and I are going to have a problem. And I know he's only a 15-year-old kid, but I will have a problem with him as a man because he's disrespecting my bloodline. But hard shit, this is what I'm going to tell everybody. Get up. Whatever it is you're not good at, that's what you need to attack. A lot of people, one of the best things that you can do if you want to do a drill is learn how to speak in public. Like if you have the accessibility to get on podcasts. I used to hate doing this stuff. I met Bedros doing public speaking and I was like, oh my God, I suck. But what's so amazing, literally, Jason Redman of all people. Jason Redman, true story when I first...
He's incredible, man.
Oh, man, and he can speak. I love him. We went to Buds together, Basic Underwater Demolition.
Yeah.
When I first spoke, he was there and he goes, hey, Ray, listen, you can't get any worse. I was like... But he was like, but you can learn from this, you know, and obviously I'm real big on getting critiques. Oh, my God. It's brutal. But I know
that's vulnerability right there, man.
But they're doing it because they love me. Like when I first met Bedros, I did a speaking engagement, and when I got off the stage, he was like, man, you did great. And I was like, really? I'm a $5,000 speaker, and you're like a $50,000 and $100,000 speaker. You mean that? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, dude, like I didn't work for him. I was like, come on, man, you can't be real. You're a fraud. He goes, oh, you want me to be serious? And I was like, yeah. And dude, it was like he just Tommy... But instead of getting nasty, I pulled out my phone and said, hold on a second, sir. And I hit record. And all those little nuggets of just, oh my God, the nuggets of wealth that he gave me, how to be better. Same thing with Jason. Instead of running from him, I studied him. And then I said, hey, I've got another speaking event here. And he's like, well, I can't make it. Well, if I record it, can you dissect it again? Yeah. The 12,000 things that I did wrong went to 6,000 things. Then they've gone to 4,000 things. And I'll never be where they're at because they got hundreds and hundreds of things. But that's accepting hard shit in your life. Being criticized, men, that is probably one of the hardest things and one of the biggest fears that we have. But embrace it. If someone is giving you constructive criticism in a controlled environment, meaning don't call me out on my BS in front of like my wife and kids. Pull me aside. Like Jason's great at that. He's like, hey, let's go to Starbucks. Let's go get some coffee, right? He's like, listen, man, I was watching what you're doing. Like when we first started our podcast up, I noticed this, and this. And I said, okay, what can I do, right? So don't just come to me with a problem. Come to me hopefully with a solution. And then as I evolve, when you give me a problem, like Bedros is like, now what is the solution? Because he's taught me, like, and that's what people and men need to do. They need to become vulnerable so that they can evolve in all avenues or fashions of their life. And I'm making sure it's not easy. You've got to swallow your pride, and sometimes you got to bite your tongue, but you have to, if you surround yourself with the right individuals, then they're doing it because they love you, right? I mean, man, it's shit. I mean, I'm on some of the stages with the best people in the world. I mean, I'm talking to Dan Flashman, Andy Frisella from First Form, all these amazing people, and Bedros opened these doors. And it's not because of the trust or the mission of the team. It's because of my effort and my attitude. Even when I'm wrong, man, I'm like, and I mean, I trip. I'm like, thank you. Like, he's like, Ray, you did this, and this wrong. I'm like, thank you. Because I'm going to take notes. I'm not going to do it again. And that's how you accomplish and get over hard shit, to the point where it's like you'll start seeking it out. Like, what's next? What's next?
Yeah, man.
And that's what I think society needs, not just for men, but women, even children. Do hard things. Like the one thing we talk about in the Squire Program is do physical activity. Having strong thumbs does not make you a man. Having a strong mind, body, and soul does. Right? So get off the damn computers, get off the phones, get off the joysticks. I grew up poor. I didn't have that shit. Go outside, explore the world, do dangerous shit, have fun. You're probably going to get in a fight. And, back in the day, well, you're not old enough, but you and I get in a fight, someone would knock someone down, it would be over with. Now it's there's so many contingencies for all this shit. It's like, just keep it simple, man.
Yeah, and back to the point of doing hard shit.
Yes.
And tying that to vulnerability. So I'm on day 36 now. I'm doing the 38 challenge for 38 days in a row.
You told me that yesterday. I'm like, you were an idiot.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's so dumb. And the reason I did it, though, one, I said I was going to do it, and because I said I was going to do it, I'm going to do it. What I've learned throughout these 38 days, I've learned so many lessons about myself and what I want the 38 challenge to become. And one of those things is that the actual exercise doesn't get easier because you continue to push yourself, right? If you're going as hard as you can for 38 minutes, how does it get easier, right? Like if it is easier, that means you didn't push hard enough. But every single day when I'm going to that track, I get this uncomfortable feeling in my gut because I know how bad it's going to suck. I wake up, my alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning. I don't want to, I know, like I wake up, I'm like, God, I don't want to go do this because I know how bad it's going to suck. But I've made myself show up every single day to do this hard shit. And I've then turned that same lesson that I've learned and applied it to vulnerability. So just on, yesterday, I was avoiding this conversation with a guy who we used to be very close, and then some weird things happened, and it was uncomfortable, right? And I was avoiding this conversation with him. And so at the beginning of September, I wrote down 38 names, people that I wanted to call, and I have not gotten through that list yet. Another point that being vulnerable sometimes is harder than doing the physical shit because I've knocked out all the exercises. I haven't called all those names. But Monday I was like came to a realization during my workout that I was like, you need to stop being a bitch and you need to be vulnerable and you need to call this guy and have a conversation with him. And the same exact feeling I got in my stomach as the number my phone was calling, right? And it was ringing. I was like, fuck, I hope he doesn't answer. He answers. As soon as he answers, that feeling in my gut gone. I'm ready to have this conversation. I'm ready to be vulnerable. So I think that showing up and putting yourself in a position to do uncomfortable things, to do hard shit, like especially when it comes to vulnerability, it's all the same. It's all the same stuff.
And what's funny is you use two really powerful words in there, and I don't know if the audience heard it, but you don't want to get up. It's not fun. I get it too, but you need. The need outweighs the want. That's why you get up and do it every day. And I just heard you say, I don't want to get up, but then you were like, I need. The need will always outweigh the want. And the people that are crushing life and dominating life and becoming vulnerable because they need to accept vulnerability in their life. They need to accept, doing hard shit. Wanting it is not enough, right? Like, I want $1 million. Bedros is like, but if you need it, it'll happen.
Love that.
And it's very powerful. They're two powerful words. And a lot of people want, right? My son, back in the day, he wanted to be Michael Jordan, but he didn't want to put in the work. Do it. You need to be the Colonel Hal Moore, right? We Were Soldiers, amazing book. The movie was good, but you've got to be the first one on the battlefield. You've got to take care of your troops. And that's your immediate surroundings. And you got to be the last one off the damn battlefield. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm the big motivator and I do all this shit. There are days that I don't want to get up. There are days I don't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to do that workout with Tim today. I didn't want to do 2 workouts with you. But because I know what your cause is for, what did I tell you? I'll do it. I need to do this for him. And I would have been miserable. I would have been horrible. But I just use that same equation that Jason told me. Listen, because we're going to do this at the Army-Navy game. I will be better. Like I told Tim today, I will be better. I will come back bigger, better, faster, and stronger. It's because the need outweighs the want, right? And that's the problem, I think, with a lot of society. You hit it right there. I don't want to get up. If nobody wants to get up at 5:30, I don't think even Jocko wants to get up at the time he does, but he needs to, right? It's like, and that's what separates the savage from the average. That just is. There's a lot of things I don't want to do, but I need to do it. Like, my wife recently started getting me into going to church. Originally, I didn't want to do it, but I need to do that to strengthen our relationship together. So you have to sit there and figure out that work-life balance or synergy of whatever it is and prioritize, strategize, and monetize what is important to you. And monetization is not always this. It's how can I monetize my relationship, my just everything that I'm doing, my brand, my message. How can I make it more impactful? And it's by prioritizing and strategizing everything. I have a plan, man. Like from the night I go to bed, I know I lay out exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm going to do. Now, obviously, I'll get some emails and things change, but I will still accomplish everything that I want to do in that day. And then after I do that, that's kind of my attack the hill mindset. I run up the hill versus walking. Once I get to the top of that hill, I've accomplished everything. It's like, what's next? right? Because I need to keep conquering. I need to keep doing hard shit. I need to be a better person.
Let's do it then.
Let's do it. I mean, you issued the challenge out with me. I mean, you're 22 years old. You're going to kick. Listen, I mean, I'm going to train hard for it. But even go like, and it's not like I'm going in saying I'm going to get my ass kicked, but I guarantee there's going to be guys that beat me there. But this is what I'm going to tell you. This is how I look at it. And I'm just being honest. When you're 50, motherfucker, you better be doing the same thing. That's it. Because people forget how old I am. And I'm not going to use age as an excuse, right? I look at it like this. I am physically, mentally, emotionally more mature and evolved than most people. That's why I get to do what I do. Now, I'm not saying I'm more evolved than you. I'm just saying that when the shit comes to hit the fan, man, having a couple more years on you, it might be an advantage. It may not be. Maybe not physically, but mentally, emotionally, I know how to get the job done.
Right. And I mean, I think it's all about what you can teach other people. And I have so much to learn from you. I've already learned so much from this podcast. And, you know, a lot of people, when I say that I'm 22, people like yourself, right, who see the quality in people and the quality of men and the mission that we're doing, they get excited by the fact that I'm 22.
This is what America needs to look at 22. Like, seriously, I'm not sitting there you're in shape. You're very well articulated. You have a passion for military. You have a passion to help. This is what we need. And I don't know how the hell you got to where you are, but what I will tell you is, brother, and I call it like this, you were on the right path. Like, when I first heard it, I was like 20. And then Jason, I talked to Jason. He's like, this is not a 22-year-old kid that you're used to. Because what am I used to? 22-year-old kids, out of shape, disrespectful. They have no political or social realization to what's going on in the world. They don't love their country. I could go on and on. And then when I met you, I was like, damn. So my thing is if you can do it, why can't everyone else? That's what I can't grasp. If I can do it, why can't everybody else? Like, I don't get that. I refuse to take the easy way out. I mean, just from looking at you, I can tell that you put in the work. And that's the thing. People get pissed off. I guarantee there's people that your age that are just jealous as shit of you. But like I said, they're not in the gym putting in the work, getting up at 5:30, doing the fucking workouts 38 days in a row. And that shit, I'm thinking about doing that. Like, you're motivating and inspiring me, and that's hard. And I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man, because I don't say it lightly. Like, if you sat here and you were 22 and you weren't what I expected, I'd be like, you're exactly what I thought you were going to be. And you're not. You're the complete opposite. I mean, damn, man. But my thing is why can't we create an army of you, create an army of me, and make the world a different place? That's what I can't wrap my head around.
I listened to this on a podcast that you and Bejo did. And I think the reason, one, I had a really good mentor. When someone asks me for my age, usually I say on paper or like the amount of trauma I've been through, or and I think it boils down to how many people you can impact. And I think the reason, and for me, taking compliments is something that I'm working on.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Even at 50, it's hard. Yeah.
And so, but I seriously do thank you, and your words inspire me, and you inspire me a lot. I think that what I've been through, because it's not just the death of my brother. That was the most traumatic experience of my life. So you probably didn't know this, but I got Matt's dog tags tattooed to a crown of thorns next to a cross when he was alive. So that's who my brother was to me. And a lot of people will say, it's so awesome what you're doing. Like, how do you have this passion? How do you have this purpose? Like, people will say, I want what, like, how do I do what you're doing? I'm like, dude, you don't want to go through what I went through. You don't want to go through the mental battles that I have. That recently I've been having a lot of dreams of my brother. And in these dreams would always, the dreams recently, and man, it gives me chills every time. But the dreams recently have been, every time I see him in a dream, he's got a big smile on his face, right? And I have not seen him that happy in a long time, if ever, maybe, in my dreams. And he's just so happy, so whole. And I always say, but in my dreams, I know that he had already taken his life. I know that he's not there, but he's there in the dream, right? And so it's this weird kind of relationship. And I always ask him, I say, like, you don't have to do this, man. Like, when are you coming back? He's like, I have to. I'm not coming back. And so what people don't understand, and they look at the passion, they look at the purpose, like that, like, I think that's what people are missing is, one, trauma shapes, I think, men, but also they're not intentionally putting themselves in hard situations and suffering. I think that's the difference. I think that everyone's so comfortable, and I used to be so comfortable, and I never applied myself. So I mean, and also, I think the reason why the 38 challenge will be what it is because of surrounding myself with people like you.
You know, and the one commonality that when I see this, and it doesn't matter, right? Like, we are the same vessel. I'm just older than you. Bedros, Matt, all the guys like Sean Whalens, the Andy Frasilas, we have all dealt with some form of trauma in our life. Like, no shit, real trauma, death, like my father murdered, all the things that I went through. Now, when I say this, and I'm talking about me, I'm not asking you. I'm almost grateful now for the things that have happened to me. Now, I'm not saying I wish my father would have ever, but as you mature, you will learn to, we'll never understand how things happen and why they happen. But I honestly feel that it shaped and molded me into the man that I am right now. And I still have a lot of work, but, like when I tell, what it did for me is it made me one of the most relentless motherfuckers on planet Earth. Like, when I go into a room, my job is to outwork the workers there. I want people to know that I am there, and I'm going to kick, claw, scratch, bite, tear to get it done. And that's what I love Bedros. Like, he rewards me with just because I'm loyal. I'm a loyal dog, but I am relentless to my pursuit of success. And, I sit and talk to him about that pursuit and what I'm looking for. I want to leave a legacy when I pass. I don't want, I'm not a Rob O'Neill. I didn't kill Osama bin Laden, do this or do that. But I want people to go, and one of the biggest compliments I get because I do coaching and all these other things. I'm like, man, I was getting ready to throw in a towel, Ray, and I was getting ready to do this and this and this. And all of a sudden I heard your voice. And I'm like, yeah. And sometimes they're like, it's the most annoying voice from planet Earth. And I'm like, you're welcome. Right. And just like, I don't mind yelling at someone. I don't mind getting yelled at. If that's all it takes for me to be the bad guy, to save that person from taking their life, giving up on their wife, throwing in the towel for whatever it may be, I'll fucking take it. Like, on Instagram, I'm the bad guy because I yell at people. But what people don't see and they don't know is, like, when I went viral, I saved that guy. He was getting ready to throw in a towel. He's a fucking animal. Makes a lot of money. He's gotten in shape. Him and his family are better. And you know what? I humbly accept being the villain for that. And so does Steve. And I don't care. I used to worry about it. I'm like, but if you're not in the trenches with me, if you're not going through the course, lock it up.
Yeah, and who the hell cares what they think?
Exactly. And I used to be the guy that wanted to please everybody. You can't please everybody. But if you're doing it right,
I'm still working on that. Yeah.
It's hard, and it won't get better. It won't. Like, I want to please people. I want to make people happy. Only person you need to make happy in life is yourself. Once you do that, it will cascade or ripple out to the people in your life. And there's probably 10, 15 people that I honestly give a real shit about in this world, like where I would do anything. And I named a couple of them where I'm on a plane doing that. Obviously, my family. And as long as I'm being the best version of me I can be, I'm being vulnerable, I'm being honest, I'm being open, then I'm successful. And I will continue to thrive and drive and strive. I will. And I'm not trying to make things, I will be that guy. And, when I pass, I will leave a legacy. People will remember me. I'm not going to be a superstar. I may not be the richest or drive the fanciest cars. And, but what I do is I focus on building my, I invest in my job to create a salary to make a living, but I also invest and create in myself to become a millionaire in every single fashion except for making money, right? I want to have $1 million wife, which I do. Oh my God, she's hot. I have $1 million life. I have a beautiful home. I'm so blessed. Even with all the pain and the turmoil and the trauma that I've went through, I'm blessed because I'm still alive to get up in the 8, because I sleep about 6 hours a day. It gives me about 18 hours to do two things: kick ass or get my ass kicked. And I'll tell you, brother, I've been on both sides, and I much rather kick ass than get my ass kicked. I got my ass kicked today physically, but I think we're together collectively, we're kicking ass, spreading this message. So it weighs itself out, right? Like I said, it's about that synergy. And
sometimes you got to get your ass kicked to do the ass kicking too.
Man, and I do. I'm a glutton for it. I just go around and I train hard and with everything, with my family, my fitness, my finances, and faith. I've narrowed it down to the 4 things. They're the 4 things in life that I focus on.
So I'm gonna ask you to help me with this,
Okay.
right? So after these 38 days, what I've determined, myself and what the brand is. You asked me what the 38 challenge is. The 38 challenge is doing hard shit.
Mm-hmm.
And at the core of doing hard shit is being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to push my body to the brink, and I'm going to do incredibly hard shit. And then I'm going to go past that, and I'm going to do even harder shit with the conversations that I have with people. And I'm going to ask you now to be vulnerable. And you talk about these dark times in your own life. Mm-hmm. And I love asking people this question. I don't love it. It's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But people can relate to it. So I'll ask you to explain, to be vulnerable, and to explain, what's a time in your life where you've gotten, where it's been dark and you had to be vulnerable to pull yourself out of it?
Working for the agency and the SEAL teams and stuff, I had a lot of negative thoughts and a lot of demons, if you will. Sometimes we do things we're not proud of overseas. And I was bringing a lot of that negativity and aggression and anger home. And it was affecting my family. And not in like a violent manner, but, you can be verbally abusive to people, and it's worse. And always being on, the offense, always being offensive and always on the offensive and always being on the defense, right? And, then you start acquiring bad habits, whether it's drinking or porn or smoking or doing this or doing that. And I just had to do some self-reflection, and I do a self-reflection drill, my family, my fitness, my finances, and faith. Man, and I was fucking flunking. And I had to take acceptance for it. I got some external help. I saw some counselors. I recently just did some with the vets.org with Marcus Torgus, and I went and did some hallucinogen training for some of the things that I have. He's an amazing human being. I did a TV show with him, and he put me
like plant medicine, or
yeah, doing a bunch of the stuff there. It's 5 days in Mexico. But the one thing that I have to make sure I stress upon is doing one thing to become better isn't enough, right? Like, so it's not just like I got back from the plant-based and said, oh, hallelujah, I'm fixed. I am constantly, just like you're constantly trying to do hard shit, I'm constantly trying to better myself, read books on relationships. A lot of the issues I have are, I'm just if we're going to be honest here, I'm a dick when it comes to certain things. And sometimes I take it out on my family. And I can't be that, because I have a wife that I have no business being with. I shit you not. That's why I got her tattooed on my arm. And if I don't continually try to step up and be more of a man and take responsibility and become vulnerable, I'm going to be a 50-year-old fucking single guy. And I don't want to be that guy. And it's hard. It's hard to swallow your pride. I've asked other people, Bedros, he has a great, his life's pretty good. Asking him about this. He gave me 5 days off work when I told him I had to do this because I was losing my temper, and he didn't even charge me like leave or whatever it is, vacation time. He was just like, oh, so, wow, but that's probably one of the hardest things I've had to do. And there's been, and it's been a couple counselors and a couple other things. And, Pedro's Koulian said, never try to drown the person that taught you how to swim, and he used that in business, but I think that applies with my wife. She is my strength. I fucking love her so much, but sometimes as a man, I have a bad way of showing it. I've done a lot of stupid shit that I'm not proud of, and I'm trying to fix it. And the only way that I'm going to fix it is that if I accept my flaws, that I am vulnerable, and seek out help and treatment. And I'm going to continue to do that as long as it takes. There's no, Andy Frisella has the 75 hard, 38, it's life hard, life challenge. I think it's amazing when people that's why I won't even put a number on a percentage. It's, I'm going to live till I'm 100. So I've got 50 years to try to fix the shit that I'm doing. And it's not like you can just wave a magic wand and it goes away. Not with PTSD, not with anything. You have to constantly tweak and hone in the physical, mental, and emotional skill sets that you have. And then with a relationship, I don't know if you're in a relationship, but people grow, and they're like taste buds. People they grow, their tastes change. My job as a man is to make sure that her and I are as on the same path as we can be. There's definitely things that we won't always agree upon, or things that she'll like to do that I don't like to do, but I can't lose my woman. And because I wouldn't be anything without her. I mean, that's vulnerable right there. I would not be anything without my wife or my children. They are my support. I mean, I have the most supportive wife on fucking planet Earth, man. And I love you, Tricia. I do. She is amazing. And she's been with me, through the good and the bad times. So I owe it to her to create better memories, better moments, and a better legacy for Team Care. And I fuck up all the time, but I'm going to keep doing it, man. So not easy to talk about.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's
no, seriously,
I'm
man.
real uncomfortable. I'm like shaking, and I'm doing all the agency things I'm not supposed to be doing.
Isn't that,
I'm like,
dude, it's fucking crazy, man. Because it's like God, it's so uncomfortable to be vulnerable. It really is, man. And that's why I was so excited to have you on, because you have been doing it for longer. First of all, you keep talking about, you look fucking incredible. I'm just gonna put that out.
I'm moisturized. Thank you.
But in your energy, man, and where you want to go, and just your relentless pursuit of greatness, but attached to every step of that journey is vulnerability, right? And it's still like you look at Ray Cash Care, and you see this, right? People see this big tatted up former Navy SEAL who's yelling at people, right, and breaking them down, but for you to show the strength that you just did and vulnerability, that's what men need to look at, and that's what they need to become in order to be better fathers, to be better wives, to be better killers, right? Imagine if you could go and kill, and when you come back, you didn't want to kill yourself. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do at the 38 Challenge, and vulnerability is such an important piece of that. So as you learn these lessons, right, and you're doing this hard, uncomfortable things like working out with Tim Kennedy, right?
I hate you, Tim Kennedy.
Yeah. like all this stuff, man. How have you applied those lessons into all the projects that you're doing in building men? Where does vulnerability play into when you are breaking down and building up a man? Well,
I think it's one of the core values that we have to have, in order to grow. I tell people, the more we know, the more we can grow. And the only way you're going to express and tell me things about yourself, not good things, right? We do a 7-day discovery. It's a sheet where I don't want to know what's good about you. Right there, this is vulnerability 101. I need you to talk to me about pain, turmoil, chaos, trauma, PTSD. And it's hard for some men. And I don't want this, and I'll look over it. And if you just went I had some shit happen in my life, I will call you back and say, this is unacceptable. Mm-hmm. I need more. Right. I need more. And then all of a sudden, there's a point where, I've done this with one guy 3 or 4 times. He's like, look, man, and he starts just opening up, right? Just letting it all out. I said, that's amazing. Now what I need you to do is I need you to put that on a piece of paper so myself and the other instructors can see it. We're not going to if you told me you were sexually abused, I'm not going to sit here and go, hey, listen, we do this one exercise called Hunt and Destroy, where we talk about the most vulnerable things that have happened in your life. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, listen, you wrote down here that you were sexually molested. Let's talk. No, we don't do that. No, we don't do that. We use tools and mechanisms, and we poke and we prod. And when you're in this controlled environment with other men who you see are accepting you for who you are, and I'm so fucking passionate about this, I'm getting emotional. All of a sudden, these men, big, you think and we have professional athletes in there crying like babies. They've been holding this in for fucking years. They didn't even realize this because they blocked it out, right? They compartmentalized it over here. And then all of a sudden we opened up all these channels and doorways to get to that. And then what happens is they'll cry like babies, but that's where the growth happens because there's other men who have been there and done that with them. And they were like, hey man, I know what you're going through, right? Like when my father was murdered, I told you, like someone said, I know exactly what you're going through. I said, your father was murdered at a young age? No, he died when I was 80. No, you don't. You don't know what I'm going through. All you're doing is talking. You didn't listen to what I just said. You just heard me. Because when men listen to men, they'll be like, listen, is there any way you and I can go talk? Because I've been through something very similar, and I think I may have some tools for the tool bag that you can use if an episode comes up or if you're feeling, you know, vulnerable and you don't know how to deal with it. This is what we need. But vulnerability is probably one of the core essence of our group. And it's one of the hardest things for these men to go through. You think just like SEAL training, it's physical. It's the mental and emotional, which is what breaks a man down and can build a man back up. Listen, we can do push-ups and work out all damn day long. But what is the inner dialogue? Like today, my inner dialogue with Tim Kennedy I was so hard on myself. I'm ashamed of myself. I didn't even want to get a picture with him today. I was so ashamed of myself. Right. And he literally said, stop. You're not being vulnerable. You're being a bitch. That's what he told me. He's like, you're not being vulnerable. You're being a bitch. Stop.
Yeah. And that's, so we had Tim Jensen from Grunstein. We literally want to put stop being a bitch, ask for help on a shirt.
Yeah.
Cause it's like if being strong, right, is doing hard shit, then shying away from doing hard shit is being a bitch. So it's like, and then therefore if being vulnerable is hard and uncomfortable, do it. And if you're not doing it, you're being a bitch.
So one of the things that I talk about in the project, and I usually don't say this, but we're having a great conversation, is I say, stop being a bitch and become the bitch. And guys are like, that makes no sense. A bitch is exactly what you think. Weak, making excuses, blah, blah, blah. Could go on. Become the bitch. Become intellectually sound, trainable, a communicator, and hard as fuck. And then they go, or if I have a group of men, I say, hey, listen, stop being a bitch and start being the bitches. And they're like, well, what's that mean? Become intellectually sound, trainable, a communicator, hard as fuck. And what did I do? Especially in a short amount of time. And they're like, wow. So I got guys that are like, I'm an HR nightmare. Like it says, be the, and obviously they put an asterisk in there. But yeah, man, you know.
And but that's exactly how we need to have conversations around vulnerability and what it means to be a man. Is like, because right now it's like people are like, oh, like I can't be a bitch, like I can't show weakness. It's like no, like you are being a bitch by not being vulnerable because you are shying away from doing hard things. It's going to make you a better man. That will make you a better father. That will make you a better protector. You're shying away from that, so you're doing the complete opposite by holding things in because there are people that are counting on you.
Strength comes from accepting weakness. That's it. That's how true strength comes, from accepting weaknesses, flaws that you possess, not other people. You're not going to become strong by calling other people out on their bullshit. Call yourself out. Like, I know exactly what I'm weak at, and I'm becoming stronger because I've accepted it, and I'm vulnerable enough to acknowledge it, not just internally, publicly. Publicly. Like, yeah, publicly.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point to make is like for you to be where you are now, to publicly be vulnerable the way that you were, like you said, like that's not like I'm not asking men to go out there and just be like, oh, this is how my life's like that's not what vulnerability is. Like me going out and sharing my brother's story, like that is not, like, don't think that that's what vulnerability is. Vulnerability is showing up and taking the first step, just the first step, having that internal realization that you need to do something hard and you need to call someone and ask for help. That is what vulnerability is. You don't have to. Social media is if I didn't have to do social media, I wouldn't do it. But what it does is allows the message to get out there, and vulnerability is. And you also don't have to have your father be murdered. Your brother and best friend doesn't have to kill himself for you to be going through internal hardships. It doesn't matter what it is. Just ask for help because it's hard. because it's uncomfortable. And those type of things are things you have to go after.
And everybody deals with hardships
Everyone.
at some time in some fashion in their life. Everybody. I tell people, like, when they join my course, I have guys like, I had the perfect life. I'm like, you are so full of shit. Your eyes are brown. You are. You don't have to be physically and sexually abused, but you're going to tell me you've never been physically, mentally, emotionally, or even financially strained? Come on. I mean, no, not unless you're a Ricky Silver Spoons. You don't know who that is. That's a show way before your time. But everybody deals with trials, tribulations. Everybody.
Everyone.
But not everybody will accept it and acknowledge it. And like I showcase it. I showcase my flaws. I showcase my weakness. I showcase my vulnerability now. You have to showcase the shit that's bad to become good. That's just it. And being vulnerable isn't a bad thing. But I'm vulnerable with things that are bad or negative in my life, if that makes sense, right? Things that I want to be better at. So I want to make sure that people understand my message. I'm not saying being vulnerable is a bad thing. I'm just vulnerable about the things that I am bad or I'm lacking in my life.
Absolutely. So, I mean, God, I feel like we could go all day.
You're an enlightened cat, man, for 22. I'm serious.
I mean, dude, it's surrounding myself with men like yourself, right? And just having incredible mentors. My mother's a rock, and having an unfortunate circumstance, man. It's I talk about this story a lot. I'll tell it to you, and then we'll try to wrap this thing up. But so the reason why I'm so passionate about vulnerability and having these conversations, Matt got out of the military. He got out of the Marine Corps. Ended his time in Mali, Africa. He did some special operations intelligence there, and then came back. So, and I spent the last 3 months with Matt, and we were there. We were physically with each other a lot. So every morning we'd wake up. He'd wake me up at, it'd be 7 a.m. At this point, I still had my brother, and I wasn't doing hard shit. He pushed me to, right? I mean, he's the type of guy. I remember one time, he was training for screening, and he was like, "Hey, I need to fill up." He's like, "I don't have any rucksacks, right?" He had to carry 2 60-pound bags. He's like, "Come here." So he had a 70-pound ruck on his back, and then he was running like 3 miles. I don't know if he had to do that or if he just like wanted to, but he was like, "Come here, like, I need you to help me fill these bags with books until they get to 60 pounds." So I remember sitting in my basement, like literally filling 2 duffel bags full of books, right, and just sending his ass out the door. We'd go work out, but he'd come in the morning and wake me up. "Wake up, Brandt." I was like, "Dude, let me sleep." He's like, "Fuck that, come on, let's go. We gotta go work out. We'd spend a lot of time together physically, and then we'd work out again in the evening. But I felt this sense of anxiety, right? I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't strong enough to ask for help, and he wasn't strong enough to tell me what was wrong. And then fast forward, we spend a lot of this time together. He goes to Kansas City to become a firefighter. I go back to Texas, and then he calls, or we were like, it's been a couple weeks since we were talking, and I was looking at my phone, and I texted him. I said, "Hey man, like let's talk, like let's catch up." He's like, "All right, let's do it on Valentine's Day." So Valentine's Day rolls around. I'm looking at my phone, and I have Matt's contact pulled up. I'm about to call him, and that same feeling that I still get when I'm having uncomfortable conversations, I had it, and I shied away from it. I didn't call him. He didn't call me either. 5 days later, Matt took his life. Never had to have that conversation. So that is why I will spend the rest of my life chasing a society where suicide isn't an option. Not going to get there. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why we do it. So, I mean, seriously, coming from you, like, it means a lot to me that you're here and having this conversation and being vulnerable, man. I mean, it truly does mean the world.
Yeah, I'm going to say something publicly. I've been on a ton of podcasts, and I don't need to say, this is the best fucking podcast I've ever been on, and I've been on some big ones. I'm serious, man. I'll say that publicly. I mean, yeah. Fucking amazing. I love it's because I mean, the passion isn't fake. It's real. I feel it, man. I'm a big passion guy too. And I mean, God, I wish I was you when I was 22, man. I was going through buds at 22. I wish to God I was you. Fucking animal. I don't like how you had to get to where you're at, but I love where you're at and what you're going to do. That's what I judge a man on, right? I'll judge a man on what he's done, how much money he makes. I judge a man on what he's doing right now and what he's going to do. And I know you're going to do some great fucking things, man.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
And
And I hope I can help. I want to help. I do. I'm not a guy that says shit and then don't do it. I will be at the Army Navy game, and you'll beat me, but I promise you'll fucking know I'm there, man.
Well, and I look forward to leaning on you and the lessons that you've learned, because I look up to you as a man, having this conversation as well. And yeah, man, I appreciate you for being the person who you are. I want to, I met Jay Red. He's on the board of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, a veteran advisory board. We do this thing called Project.
I know what we're gonna do. I know what we're getting ready to do. Go ahead, do it. Bring it. I already just said I would. Go ahead.
100%. But I want to tell a story before.
Okay.
Because we talked about it earlier. You talked about Jay Red speaking.
And how I carried him through SEAL training, but that's a whole nother story. No, kidding.
But he was like, so I talked to him before. I was reaching out to the veteran advisory board. I was like, hey, Jake, him and I got to talk, and he came to Austin, and we had a great time. We knocked out a podcast, and he bitched out of the workout too, just like yourself. But
wow.
No, I'm playing.
No, it's all good.
But so he was like, hey, bro, like, let's knock out the podcast, and then he did a speaking event here in Austin. Mm-hmm. He was like, hey, they're going to do this live auction. We're going to donate all the proceeds to the Concussion Legacy Foundation for Project Enlist, which we get into. I was like, oh, that's great, dude. I was like, when are you going to be in Austin? He's like, it's in Austin. I was like, all right, perfect. So got together, and then he texted me. He's like, yeah, so need you to come to the hotel. Mic checks are like 4, and then I speak at like 5. And I was like, all right, cool. Did the podcast. They went on. I was like, wait, why does he need me at mic checks? And I got to mic checks. He's like, all right, bro, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give my speech, and then you're going to come up in front of this, 1,000 people, and you're going to talk about Project Enlist and the Concussion Legacy Foundation and tell your brother's story. Cool? I was like, bro, what? Like, I had no time to prepare for this. And he's like, I was like, hey, Jay, like I was trying not to show that I was like nervous as hell, right? And I was like, hey, man, like, so you want me to prepare anything? He's like, nah, dude, you're good. I was like, I'm really not like prepared. He's like, I got you, bro. I was like, all right, man. But so then he crushes it, right? Amazing public speaker. Everyone's like silent, and he tells a story about why he's involved in the Concussion Legacy Foundation. In this very motivating conversation, gets very emotional very fast. He talked about the people, so the crowd's silent. He goes, and I'd like to welcome up a military program manager for Concussion Legacy Foundation, Brandt McCartney. And I was like, oh, fuck. So I'm walking and that was my encounter with Jason. So just to talk about the thing earlier, like I was so damn nervous about that. But I got up there and I told Matt's story, and a lot of people came up and they were like, thank you for your vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And that's always the message I get out there. And that's another example of a time where it's uncomfortable, but you have to embrace it, because that could have saved someone's life. Who knows? Mm-hmm. And then we got to talk to Jason, and now let's you and I talk TBI. Yeah. Let's talk TBI. So I'll ask you publicly, just so you know, to pledge your brain to Project Enlist. Mm-hmm. And if you choose to accept, then I would ask you why. Why is research on brain injuries so important to you, and why are you comfortable pledging your brain, and what's the need for it?
So yes, I accept, and I would love to donate my brain, and it's because I've lost too many of my brothers from the ripple effect of being diagnosed with this. I'm not going to say their names. Me and Jason have some mutual friends who've married SEALs, just, taking their lives, having issues with sleep disorder, this and this. So if my contribution could help save one life after mine's gone, it's no pun intended, it's a no-brainer. And I don't mean that. Sorry, I shouldn't even have said that, because I'm not trying to make a joke.
I'm going to steal that from you.
It's it would be an honor and it'd be a privilege, and hopefully enough people can see the light in this, and hopefully we can stop this, because there's too many people who have done too many amazing things that are taking their lives. So obviously, your brother's one of them. So we have to do what we can. We have an obligation, we have a responsibility, we have a duty to step up and stop this. So yeah, I mean, Jason asked me that, and I was like, fuck yeah. That's what I told him. I mean, just, you know, we've known each other for 20 some years, and he's like, listen, I want you to, I'm like, spoke to my wife, and she's like, yeah, if that can help potentially save one life after you're gone, I'm still carrying on a legacy. And I told you, my legacy, when I do my 22 push-ups, which I know the number is almost like 40 and 44 or something.
And they won't release the numbers.
They won't. Yeah.
Terrifying. Yeah.
But I will leave a legacy. My goal is to get that number to 0, and me donating my brain to just cutting one number down. It's a win-win for me.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And because I know this conversation is going to save a lot of people who have dealt with TBI, people who haven't, just because of the powerful things that have been said. But for people out there who are experiencing TBI, like, you have to understand that it's an injury to the brain that is causing a lot of the thoughts, behaviors, and actions of the people in the warrior culture, whether you're a veteran, an athlete, especially veteran, especially in the special operator world, because a lot of people played football their whole life, right? Or have done things before even going into the high blast exposure of special operations, of low blast exposure. Like, CTE is running rampant within the military, and that's something that we haven't looked at yet, and that's the goal of Project Enlist. And your brain, regardless of, you know, the experiences or whatever they find, whatever they don't find, like, it will help save someone's life. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart, brother.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll wrap it up with this. Man, what does the 38 challenge mean to Cash?
It means pain. It means sacrifice. Mine are very short, and it means integrity. Just, you know, because you can't do something like that and cut corners. And it means making a difference, right? One rep at a time, one step at a time, one sit up at a time. I love things like this because we can always build to it and build on it. And, like, I would love to see a whole nation do this. I hope when we go to the Army Navy game, we have the entire people doing it. You know, I think it's amazing. It means, to me, it means freedom. It means, God, it means so many things. But what I think it could also mean is maybe a solution. Hopefully a solution, right? That's what I want it to mean. Hopefully by doing this and spreading the word and, you know, creating awareness and, you know, the big thing I always worry about when people with TBI is they self-medicate. You know, I can't sleep, so they start overloading on this and this and this, which just, in all actuality, amplifies what they're going through. That happened with my friend. But I don't know what the answer is. I don't think anybody does.
No one does. No one does.
But I think if we continue on the path of righteousness with what we're doing, we've done so much as a nation. I can't see why we couldn't figure out some form of solution that's better than it is now. That's, you know, if we can save one life, man, that's a win for me, you know. But if we can save them all,
yeah,
let's do it. You know, I mean, hey, listen, I'm grateful, not greedy, but when it comes to saving lives, I want to be greedy as hell. I want to save as many as I can.
Yeah, and we have the same goal, and to take that number down to 0.
Yeah.
And that's an infinite mindset, and that's the kind of mindset we have to have, man.
Yeah.
So, thank you, brother. Seriously, man.
Been a pleasure, and I mean that.
Yeah, me as well, man.
Thank you, sir.
All right.